G'day and welcome to Bull Tales, the podcast that brings you stories from Australia's leading sale rings, breeding paddocks. I'm Lee White, and this is episode 1 of what I hope will become the go-to source and insights for the Australian cattle breeding industry and show and sale rings. Today we're kicking off with something special. Preview of the Dubbo National Bull Sale coming up in July 1st. I'm joined by Andrew Quirk from Pinnacle Poll Herefords, who's bringing 3 quality bulls to Dubbo. But before we dive into that, let me tell you what Bull Tales is going to be all about. This podcast will take you behind the scenes with Australia's leading cattle breeders, break down bloodlines, give you the inside word on upcoming sales and shows, whether you're a seasoned breeder or a newcomer to the game, or just fascinated in the science and art of breeding cattle. This show's for you. Now let's get into it. Andrew, welcome to Bull Tales. For listeners who might not know Pinnacle Poll Herefords, can you give us a quick introduction into your operation?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Lee. It's pretty special to be the first on your podcast, which I think will be the first of many. Yeah, just a bit of an insight into my small operation. It is a small operation. Basically, it's run off a family farm. We bought a small place just on the outskirts of Forbes 3 years ago and decided to get back into Herefords, and Dad's at that age where he was either looking to sell the farm or lease the farm, and that's what we've done with that. Yeah, just basically getting off the ground as such over the last 3 years and back into it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you said you've had the farm for 3 years, but you've been involved with Herefords for a lot longer than that. How long have you been involved with the Herefords, and what drew you to Herefords initially?
Yeah, well, it goes back to my childhood, I suppose. Dad's got the farm, and that was his grandfather's, so we've had it well over 100 years, and we're going back through his grandfather. He had Herefords, and then Dad's got a fondness for Herefords as well. And if we weren't breeding Herefords, we were buying Herefords in as weaners or Hereford crosses, particularly that Euro Hereford cross, and growing them out to bullocks. That gave me the fondness for Herefords. And then fortunately, sort of in my teenage years when I went to high school through school, I was introduced to Ted and Elaine Hubbard of Llandillo Poll Herefords down there at Warroo, and their children, Andrew and Byron and Chantel. And yeah, I got an affinity with the stud cattle from there. And fortunately enough, I was lucky enough to be given a Poll Hereford female out of their heifer drop. I think that was about 1994 or 5. And yeah, I sort of went from there.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing those origin stories of how people get into the Herefords, and once they get the love for it, they never want to leave. Now, before we dive into these bulls of yours for Dubbo, can you paint a bit of a picture for us of your breeding philosophies, what you're trying to do with your herd now that you've started back out?
Yeah, well, now I've just started back out. It's basically just working on the fundamentals. I mean, those good female lines and keeping that nice and tight, and making sure they're productive. The other big focus for me, particularly with Herefords, is they've got to have good skin and hair and a sound structure. The other thing I look for is good flat bone in females. And I think if you get those fundamentals right, particularly if you're just starting out, keeping a nice, tight-knit group, that'll build a good... It'll basically give you that platform to then go out and use something a little bit different and probably push a little bit harder. Knowing your females is also a big thing when you're selecting bulls. You know what's good and bad about them in a sense, and just to try and keep those lines as straight as you possibly can and as even as you possibly can.
Yeah, excellent. I really, you brought a few females from us to start back up with those 4 heifers at Dubbo, and the type that they are, that's the type I love. And yeah, you can really see what you're trying to do with that. Righto, let's talk about those 3 bulls that you've got heading to Dubbo. I'd love to go through each one individually if we can. You want to start telling me about your first bull that you want to talk about? Tell me about his lot number and his registration.
Yeah, well, first bull, Tiger Tank, his AJQU 005. He's lot 1 in the sale, so I've drawn lot 1 as he's one of the younger bulls in the sale. He'll be 18 months for sale. Yeah, he's got an interesting pedigree on his female side. Tigeress, he's out of the Tigeress line that goes back to Yalgu Tigeress. I think she was Z241H, and she was a donor, and I think she bred 34 pretty impressive animals. He's also on that line. He's got KCF Bennett Revolution, And that bull's a 2010 drop bull. And if you look at his EBVs, I'll say it loud and proud, I'm not a real EBV fan, but his EBVs are still very relevant today. He's in the top 1% for EMA and in the top 20% for a lot of other traits. So I think he's still a very relevant bull. And that top 1% EMA, whether it goes back to Tiger Tank or not, he's very, very thick over the top. So that's probably one trait that you can look at that may go back to that bull. Yeah, and then on the top side of his dam is his by heifer bull, Llandillo Power Shift. Now, that bull was quite impressive. I did see that bull over at Lee's, over at your place, when I first sort of got into the females with you. He's by a bull called JDH Ultimate. It wasn't used, he's an imported bull and wasn't used prolifically throughout Australia, but Teichler and Canimbla and Llandillo all used him. And if that's any sort of yardstick, I think he must have been a fairly handy bull because Power Shift was a hell of a bull. And
Yeah,
he was
well,
out of a pretty good cow, Astor F189, and that line as well I really like.
yeah, we only got a few straws in that Ultimate Bull, and it was actually just Jonathan Tank was in Canada, and he'd seen the bull in the carload there, and he said to me, he said, "You want to get a few straws and use this bull?" And we only got a handful of straws, and we flushed that Astor cow at F189 that you know I love so much. And yeah, that power shift bull, he was the best heifer bull we had. We couldn't find a bull to buy, so we kept him and just used him on our heifers those 2 years. And it's one of the best things we got to do because he's left some really nice females here as well. And Tigeress that you brought at Dubbo, was that 2023? You brought
Yeah,
Tigeress
it
from
was
us? She was,
2023. It was a year after we bought the 4 pacemaker
yeah,
daughters.
she was grand champion there at Dubbo, and she was in calf to soldier, which is this calf. Yeah, I think those power shift females here have impressed me more and more as they're growing on. And I think you were saying on the phone a couple of weeks ago that she's calved again, and she looks amazing at the moment.
She does. She's got a pretty impressive udder. She's sort of season tightened up as well just after Christmas, and we had good rain in November, and then it tightened up in the new year, and we were really looking for that rain probably 2 weeks ago. And fortunately enough, we got it. But it's impressive when you look across your herd and you can see those females that hold up when it does tighten up, and she was definitely one of those. She held all the condition. She calved well. Her udder was really good, and she produced milk straight away. So they weren't given any sort of special treatment. They weren't fed. We did have a little bit of loose lick out, but she was certainly one that held up well. Yeah, and another thing to probably add on that, I know when we went through some of the calves over at Llandillo, and you'd pick out a few calves and say, "What's that?" It sort of was pretty consistent. A lot of the calves, particularly in a couple of mobs in the heifers, it was that power shift bull. So I think that top side of that female is really, really strong. Combined with that, going back to Yalgoo Tigeress, you can't go wrong. And then obviously he's by Llandillo Soldier. Yeah, I had a pretty big fondness for Soldier. He's a pretty complete package. Obviously going back to pacemaker and then back to what I'd consider a super sire as Techno, and he's out of that strong Coruscant line. So, and yeah, I think there's a combination as well with Yalgoo Breakout. So there's a bit of Yalgoo blood within that pedigree, which is pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I think the soldier pedigree over those power shifts has really just added a heap of skin and made those cattle pretty easy doing and pretty soft. I'd like to think that soldier and Tigeress are pretty similar in type for doability and fleshing, and that really comes out in Tiger Tank. Let's talk about the actual bull Tiger Tank. What age is he now? We're sort of 3-4 weeks out from Dubbo. What's he weighing? Yeah, give us a bit of a detail about the actual
Yeah, well,
bull.
Tiger Tank, he's just ticking away. He's one of those bulls. Yeah, one of his probably his biggest attributes, and it's something I do look for, and I haven't covered. His feet. His feet are exceptional, and his dam as well. Her feet are exceptional, and soldiers were good. So that's a trait that's followed through. Like I said before, he's very thick over the top. He's easy doing. He's a good all-round bull. His skin and hair is quite good. Yeah, he's structurally very, very safe. I'd consider him a heifer bull, even though his EBVs don't suggest that. Yeah, he'll be 18 months at sale, and I weighed them. It must have been about a week ago, and it was straight after they'd been to Dubbo Dubbo's show, and he came off the truck. He's about 780 kilos at about 17.5 months. So he's right at that mark where I think he should be. I think he would have lost a little bit. It was a break-in show for him, so he would have lost a little bit of weight at the show. And we were fortunate enough to come away against some pretty strong competition. He came away with grand champion bull at Dubbo, so we were quite chuffed with that, and we really didn't expect it. We thought he was a pretty good bull, and yeah, the judge Chris Garvin, who a lot of people know and respect, he took quite the liking to him. So we were pretty impressed with his first show. We thought he was pretty handy bull, and that sort of confirmed it for us. We were pretty chuffed.
Yeah, and you're saying you think he's a heifer bull. I'd have to agree with. I've used Soldier here as an AI sire since we've sold him over heifers, and then we've used Power Shift very safely over heifers. Is that where you see him fitting into someone's operation as a heifer bull, or do you think there's another place for him? What do you think he's going to offer as a sire to someone?
Well, I think he's out of the three bulls that we've got going to Dubbo. If you look at him as an all-rounder, he's probably that more versatile bull out of the three. Not saying the other two aren't versatile for a particular operation, but I think that bull would probably offer that heifer bull option. And then over your older females, he's probably going to target that market for your weaner job with that extra carcass and durability. I could really see him sort of being a pretty versatile bull for someone.
Right, well, let's move on to your second bull. What's your second bull's lot number and what's his registration?
Well, the second bull, he's lot 2, and he's Pinnacle Boomer 42S. AJQ U0006. He was born on the same day, coincidentally, as Tiger Tank. I think we purchased the female that Boomer's out of the Canberra sale, and that was the Canberra show and sale, and that was a show that Soldier had won Supreme Interbreed exhibit. And after we purchased him, I think there was a phone call, and I said, yeah, I think the words were, yeah, feed her to Soldier. So that's what we did, and yeah, they were born on the same day.
Yeah, well, yeah, when I brought them home, after he won, we decided to join Tigeress to try to help sell her at Dubbo. And then, yeah, with a phone call for you, I remember you were pretty keen for your heifer to go out with him. We only joined 4 heifers and we ended up selling 3 of them. So we didn't get too many soldiers on the ground to start off with. But so he's a soldier, that fella. And what cow line were you saying he was?
Yeah, well, he's out of a very, very interesting cow line. Yeah, I think one of the first conversations Lee and I had was at Bathurst Show, and you talked about the Juliet line that you've got over there, and you'd flushed a Juliet to Rematel Burma B, which I admire greatly, and that sort of my ears pricked immediately. So then you get sort of that 12 months down the track and the opportunity to come up to buy a Boomer daughter, and I wasn't going to miss that chance. There's some exceptional sort of breeding in her pedigree. I mean, Boomer's a keynote, Teamster, and then that goes back to Leonard. And when you look at the Rematel lines, all good ones lead back to Leonard, I sort of find. And then on the bottom side, that Juliet line goes back to Palabar Journalist. You got BT Domino in there, you got Floral View Navigator, and then you got Beartooth Roundup Juno. So that I'm pretty big on pedigrees and going back a lot of generations. And when you start to see those breed legends in a pedigree, I don't sort of pass it up. That was the reasoning. That Juliet line was very, very strong. And then with Burma back over the top, you're sort of looking at an outcross at that point, because he was a 92 drop. We weren't going to pass that up. And then obviously we joined it a Soldier who's a pacemaker, who's consistent as anything, who's a techno. We thought that would breed a pretty special sort of animal. And when you look at Burma, he's all carcass. He's got a massive hind quarter. He walks extremely well. He's beautifully fronted. He's still got that really good skin and hair. He's got that back end, like, not that Soldier didn't have an impressive back end. Well, I renamed the female Lady Burma because she looks like a Burma. So, and that's sort of where it comes from. That back end is quite impressive, and the lower quarters is very, very impressive.
Yeah, great. And then was that what you'd think was the biggest difference between your lot 1 and lot 2 bull, is the extra power in that lower third? And the extra width through the bull, or what do you think's the biggest differences between the two
Yeah, the
bulls?
biggest difference is probably that Boomer influence. There's a little bit more bone. Not that Tiger Tank hasn't got enough bone. I like to see a bit of flat bone in my cattle. But yeah, that Boomer influence, there's probably just that little bit more extra power. Yeah, that and the length. The length is the extra thing. They're very similar bulls in a sense, but they're different as well. Like you can definitely see the influence of Soldier on both of the bulls. Probably more so Tiger Tank. And then you can still see the influence in Boomer, but with that probably that Remitel Boomer influence as well.
Yeah, and I've been over and seen the bulls, and I think Boomer's probably going to end up being quite a fair bit bigger bull when he's fully grown out to what Tiger Tank is. He's a little bit bigger than him now, but I think he'll be that little bit later maturing and just grow out to that. He's going to be that real power bull in your front paddock that you're excited to show people when they're driving in the
Yeah,
driveway.
he's probably, and all the way through sort of after weaning, he's probably always had that 75 kilos on Burma, on Tiger Tank, sorry. He came off the truck from Dubbo at about 851 or 2 kilos. He was around that, I think, from memory. Yeah, they both travelled up there pretty well, and he was reserve junior champion to Tiger Tank, so they were in the same class, obviously, as the same age, and then went back out when Tiger Tank was stood as junior. He went back out, and yeah, Chris Garvin took a liking to him as well. He did take a little bit of time in the class to split the pair, and then when he went back out for reserve, he stood Boomer up to my surprise.
Righto, let's move on to this third bull. Let everyone know what's your lot number and your ident on your
Yeah,
third
so
bull.
the third bull in the sale, he's lot 4 in the sale. Yeah, he's Pinnacle Midnight Special, 004. Yeah, we're probably very fond of this bull. He was born in the middle of the night. He's a heifer's first calf, as all the bulls are. They're all heifer's first calves. Yeah, and his damn Llandillo Nora, I kept a pretty close eye on her when she was calving, and the calf was born at, I think it was just shortly after midnight, and then hence the name Midnight Special. I remember a bit of an insight, hopping back into bed and said to Jessica, I think we might have one that's pretty nice, because you could sort of see he had beautiful markings and good eye hooding and the pigment. So that's where the name came from. And yeah, we're quite fond of Midnight.
Yeah, you're saying he's out of the Nora cow. What's his pedigree on both
Yeah,
sides?
he's out of the Nora cow line. So on the top side, he's a pacemaker. Goes back to Techno, which when we bought the 4 heifers, that really appealed to me because, as I said before, Techno's probably my super sire. He's bred some beautiful bulls that have then gone on to breed beautiful females, I believe. On the bottom side of Nora goes back to Canimbla Montgomery. From all reports, Montgomery was a phenotypically really, really sound, safe bull. And you can see that in Nora as well.
Yeah, the Montgomery, we brought Montgomery, he's by the original Canimbla Montgomery bull, and when Jim McWilliams had him at Sydney the first year, he had just skin falling. He had the most skin of any junior bull. I just admired him for how much skin he had, and I was going to buy a Montgomery son from the second I
Yeah.
seen him at Sydney that year. And yeah, we brought the son a couple of years later, and we've got some, they're probably our bigger sort of extreme sort of cows, I guess you'd say here, the Montgomerys, but the Techno over them, with the pacemaker, just put that extra bit of carcass and top in them and kept that skin. And, that's the female you got that you brought off us. But, and then the top side of this fella.
Yeah, the top side of this fella. Yeah, as it turns out, he's by Tyler Tedesco, a bull that obviously Llandillo bought back in, I think it was 2023. He was a pretty sound, safe bull. He was very, very long, had beautiful skin and hair. Yeah, obviously he goes back to Queenscliff. Coincidentally, Nora, she's a little bit later calving for her age. We had the flood here in 2022 in November, and for whatever reason, stress or whatever, she slipped. She was actually in calf. We joined her to Queenscliff, and yeah, unfortunately, she lost that calf, and then she cycled just in the new year. I think it was maybe the 8th or 10th January, something like that. She cycled, and I put her in a horse flat and chucked her straight in the paddock over at Llandillo, and Tedesco joined her. So yeah, his pedigree's pretty exciting as well. Obviously, he's a Queenscliff. who's now, I think, proven. He goes back to Bingra. I think that speaks for itself. And then on the bottom side, he's out of a climax. When we sort of talked to Ben Crowley about some of his favourite cow lines up there at Tigeress, climax is probably the first or second cow line that comes out of his mouth. We've seen some climax cows, and they're tremendous milkers.
I know Creepy Crowley's, he'll say Coruscant all day, but yeah, whenever you speak to Ben loves that Climax cow line. He calls it his cow line and has done for a long time. Yeah, that was probably the reason we went for Tedesco, that extra length, and then, the extra milk and in that Climax cow line. And when we brought Tedesco, you were there with me. The reason I brought Tedesco really was to add that extra length, if anything, with the pacemaker calves for us. They put a lot of top in them, they put a lot of side in them, and they were really deep flanked and soft skinned, but they probably were just a little bit short through that rib area. And Tedesco's definitely done that, and you can really see that with Midnight too. He's got that beautiful length about him.
Yeah, he has. He's got length in all the right places, and like you say, he's deep sided, and that was Tedesco all over. And when you look at him and knowing the cow and knowing the bull, he's really his mother and father's product. I think we've looked at him a couple of times, and we've like, well, that's what you get when you join a Tedesco to a Nora. It was a pretty safe sort of bet. It's panned out pretty much how I would have thought, and the joining was because Nora's that bigger framed cow, not quite as moderate as others, but that was the joining. We wanted something that was a little bit more framey, but not to say he's still a very easy doing sound bull. He's got beautiful balance, and he moves. I think I said through the week, he moves like a jungle cat, and he has been around the show ring a couple of times, and the comments have been that he moves extremely well. He holds his head up, and his eyes are up over his spine, and he does all the right things. He looks, I believe he's a typical Dubbo bull. That's sort of what we're aiming to breed.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that question, actually. I know that he's been out and about, and a fair few people have seen him. What sort of feedback have you had back on the bull?
Yeah, well, that's been the feedback that, he's your typical. His cosmetics are exactly what you want to see in I believe a Poll Hereford bull. His skin and hair spot on. He's deep sided. He walks extremely well. His feet are good. He's got that beautiful flat bone, as Tedesco and Nora both got. His tail set's right, and he's easy doing. I think he's the main feedback that I've got is that he's got tremendous growth for age. I mean, he's tipping over 900 kilos now at 19 months of age. He's showing good growth throughout his life. I think his wean weight was well and truly over 450 kilos, and for a heifer's first calf, she did a tremendous job. So we've been quite impressed with the calf. We turned him out in the spring as well to let him be a bull on some pretty tough ground. So yeah, he's done all the right things. He ticks all the boxes. I think he'll probably go out into a paddock and do a tremendous job for someone that's looking for a good, rock solid, commercially sort of relevant bull from Dubbo.
Yeah, with some really good growth about him, I think. Will be the thing that, if people are out there looking for a bull that's going to breed you some nice framey cows and do it easy, he's going to be the bull for them. So
he'd be a really, really safe bet.
Yeah. Yeah, so looking at the three bulls as a package, it seems like you're offering the buyers a bit of a range. Was that a deliberate strategy, or it's just that sort of the cards you've been dealt, and you're happy that you've got the bit of variation in your
Yeah,
team?
there's a bit of variation. The two soldiers there. I mean, when you line them up, top and bottom, we had stud stock sales do the pictures for us in late April, and you sort of line Tiger Tank and Boomer up top to bottom. Their side profile looks very, very similar, and even the sort of their markings, they're definitely soldier calves. But in saying that, they're similar, but they're different. That was sort of what we expected. And then, yeah, Midnight, obviously by a different bull and out of a different cow line as well, sort of techno, whereas Tigeress and Juliet are different again. Yeah, it wasn't a direct strategy. It's just sort of the way that it panned out, and we thought they were the three best calves for us to sort of go forward with as bulls.
Yeah, unreal. So from a breeder's perspective, if they're coming to Dubbo for the first time and they're going to come over and say g'day, what do you think of their attributes? What are you hoping that they come and really pay attention to for those bulls, and the opportunities they have for a sale like Dubbo to do that?
Well, if you're looking at the three bulls, I think their structural correctness is probably over the three bulls is going to be what you should be looking at when you're selecting a bull, and all three bulls are pretty structurally correct. Obviously, when you go to Dubbo, everything is prepped. Obviously, different studs prep different ways, but I would be looking at probably the doability of the bulls. If they're prepped and they can't do it, obviously they're probably a bit more, potentially they might be later maturing, and that side of things. It depends what you're sort of looking for, but I would go with something that scans pretty well, got that good growth for age, and looking that they've been able to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think a great opportunity for people with the show and sale is really putting the bulls side by side too, and seeing them in that show ring, and then pulling bulls out and walking on concrete. There's no hiding anything there. I think there's some real benefits to coming along and having a look at bulls at a place like Dubbo. No, that's great. So let's zoom out a little bit now. How are you feeling about the current state of Herefords, the market in Australia, and the trends you're seeing in general with Herefords in the commercial?
Hereford still, they have that functionality, the ease of doing in your more traditional Herefords. That's sort of what I see as the current state of play. I think we probably need to be a little bit more proactive with getting the message of Herefords out, that they are the gods of grass, and they do it quite easily. They're more versatile as such. You can't really pigeonhole a Hereford. They can do it on the good stuff, and they can do it on the tough stuff.
Yeah, and I think that that's, you probably hit the nail on the head there. For me, the doability of Hereford cattle, and then the longevity of Hereford cattle. Um, cows lasting a lot longer, and their bulls holding up, and a good Hereford bull will just about send a breeder broke, because we're selling bulls and people are using them for 5 or 6 years, and you'd really like them to be needing a new bull every second year, like some of the other breeds. But we seem to be getting a lot of years out of them, and I think the longevity along with that doability is something that Herefords and us as Hereford breeders can really promote, and probably need to push
Yeah,
more.
well, that's something. I was talking to someone who's got Hereford cattle in a commercial sense, and runs a pretty good operation, and they had a J bull. So I mean, he's well and truly over 10 years old, and he was still out doing the job. That sort of, they stand the test of time. They're tough as nails, and that goes back to all long lines of breeding.
Yeah, awesome. And so someone that's new to buying bulls, what's your advice for approaching a sale like Dubbo? I know we're having nibblies and going to have the bulls on display at 4 o'clock on the Monday this year. What do you think? To get down there and get round the bulls on Monday, and then get in early and look at them at the show? Or
I reckon, yeah, get in early on the Monday afternoon, and I think all vendors, particularly myself, will be pretty keen to get the bulls out on Monday afternoon, and get them out and be able to get the potential purchasers up close and personal with the bulls, be able to sort of interact with the vendors as well, and be able to talk about the pedigrees and how the bulls have travelled throughout the preparation to get them to Dubbo. The other thing I'd say to potential purchasers is, when you're selecting your bulls, select the bulls that suit your objectives and stay to tight, and probably go with your gut a little bit as well. I always sort of do that. Sort of your initial sort of perception of a bull probably doesn't change the more you look at it. If you look at a bull and you like it, go for it. That's sort of my advice.
yeah, yeah. And the one good thing with Dubbo is we've got bulls from different areas in the one place, and we're going to be able to suit a lot of different markets with bulls from a lot of different vendors. So no, I'm excited to see your bulls when we get there in a few weeks' time. I know this is episode 1. My plan is to do this with everyone, so just going to run through some quick fire questions. Just want you to answer straight away, first thing that comes to mind. So, favourite Hereford bloodline of all time?
Pinnacle Boomer. I will elaborate on that. Just as a child, as a teenager, and you get those Hereford magazines and the Norley, they'd do their advert adverts and Boomer would be there and there'd be a female and you'd be like, oh my God, look at this. And as I said before, I wasn't going to miss a chance to buy a Boomer female. I can't imagine unless someone's holding out, there's too many straws left in too many tanks. So yeah, but it's got to be Boomer for me.
Anyone that's listening and's got Boomer's straws in their tank, if you don't want to ring Andrew, ring me, because we were lucky enough to get one straw from Kevin Hilston and flushed the cow and got 9 daughters. And yeah, I think he's still very relevant. And, he's one of my all-time favourites as well. The amount of people and, you still speak to the breed legends, but the guys I've looked up to all the years, the amount of times you heard, double cross a boomer, double cross a boomer on the dam side, just in great animals. And that's something we could probably have a whole podcast on boomer one day if this works out. Best piece of advice you ever received about breeding cattle?
Yeah, I've got plenty of advice over the years, but probably the one that rings true is stay to type. Don't lose your type. Stay to the type of cattle that you want, and probably you touched on it before. Stay to type and don't be scared of a double cross.
Yeah, it's good when you enjoy looking at your cattle.
Yeah.
So especially breed what you like. The most important trait you select for?
There's probably two: structure, carcass, skin, and hair. That's it.
Yeah. So one bull from your breed's history, and I guess you're probably going to say Boomer, but the one bull from history that you can think of that you wish you could have back today to use.
Can I go a female?
Sure.
I'll go a female. It'll be the first stud female I ever had, and that was Llandillo Lady July P30. I've got a couple of pictures of her left, and when you look at her, she was a hell of a female. She was a hell of a functional female that milked the house down. She bred, I think she had a heifer as a first calf. It was pretty good. Then she had a bull calf, and I sold him in, I think it was 1999 at Dubbo. And then she had another bull calf, and he was better again. And I was lucky enough I sold him at Beef Week. I think that would have been the year 2000 or 2001. Sold him at a Beef Week. He was a pretty handy bull. I'd like to have her back now with those older genetics. Line bred. I'd love to have it back.
Yeah, awesome. Right, and last quickfire question. Your prediction for the top price at Dubbo, where do you think it's going to come from? What have you liked in the catalogue?
This is a pretty tough one. I'm probably going to go with this. I can't just pick one. Just going through the catalogue, obviously the ranch have saddled up again this year with some pretty handy bulls. Remington son there, sharpshooter, I think's probably, if it doesn't top the sale, it's going to be thereabout. Valley View, they've got a bull there as well. They had a pretty good bull there last year. He looks pretty cool in the catalogue. And JDR have got a Queenscliff son that's going there. That's pretty impressive. He done quite well on the show circuit this year and did well in Sydney. From all reports, is tracking along pretty well. He's a good balanced bull. I think they're probably three that are going to be top of the tree. There could be a couple of smokies in the sale, I think, that'll probably potentially make better money than people expect. There's some pretty exciting pedigrees there I think people are going to go for that are now proven. Yeah, excellent. I know. Andrew, this has been unbelievable. Absolutely fantastic. For people that want to see your bulls, they're lots 1, 2, and 4. You're a bit unlucky there. We know Dubbo goes on age order, so they're the youngest bulls other than the yearlings. Where can people find out more information about Pinnacle Poll Herefords if they want to look you up before the sale? Yeah, if people want to look us up before the sale, I'm fairly active on Facebook. You can find us there, just under Pinnacle Poll Hereford stud. Alternatively, you can give us a call on my mobile, 0458 160 375. They're probably the two main platforms that we use. I push my phone number with a few flyers around, and yeah, Facebook. I think there's going to be a fairly impressive ad out in the land in the next little bit as well before Dubbo, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, no, and we'll put a link to the catalogue and a link to Andrew's Facebook page and to his mobile number. So if you want to call Andrew and talk to him about the bulls, or if you want to head over to his Facebook page, there'll be a link in the show notes. And for the listeners, if you're heading to Dubbo on July 1, make sure you go and find Andrew and say good days. If you like talking
Hereford genetics and definitely those older bull genetics. I'm sure I'll be up for a chat. Righto, well, that's a wrap on episode 1 of Bull Tales. I hope you've enjoyed the preview of what's coming to Dubbo. If you like what you heard, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. It's going to help other cattle people find my show. Next episode, I'm going to be talking to Tim Reed about his bulls for Dubbo. Until then, I'm Lee White. This has been Bull Tales, story from Australia's show and sale rings. Thank
Thanks.
you.